This is a continuation of our series on looking at movable chord fragments, allowing you to play a second guitar part over a rhythm track played by somebody else or by yourself, double tracked. And if you haven't seen the previous videos, you need to go back to Tips and Tricks video number 5 to pick up the beginning of this series. Otherwise, what we look at today isn't going to make a whole lot of sense. This video is going to concentrate on movable 7th and major 7th chord fragments. Let's take a look at major 7th chord fragments first of all. Let's come all the way back and remind ourselves of our 3 major chord fragment shapes that we were using. The A shape, out of the A major chord shape, no 4th string, we bring it up the neck and we add the 1st string 2 frets behind, yes? So that is our A major chord shape. D major chord shape is just a normal D shape, just playing the top 3 strings. And we had the F chord shape, didn't we, which is an F chord, but we don't need to play the 4th string. We've got this fragment of an F chord shape. That's by way of just a quick reminder, because we're about to convert these into major 7th chord shapes. So what's the rule for converting a major chord fragment like this into a major 7th chord? The rule is that the root note of the chord comes down by 1 fret. So we need to know where the root note is in each of these shapes. In the A shape, the root note is on the 3rd string. That note is the note A, and the chord fragment is A. It's the note that has the same name as the chord. We call it the root note. And it's going to come down by 1 fret. So here we are at the 3rd fret. We're playing, of course, here out of the A shape, B flat, the chord B flat. Bring it down 1 fret to the 3rd string 2nd fret, and we have the chord of B flat major 7. And I'm going to refinger it. I'm going to replace the little finger with the ring finger, but you can finger it whichever way works for you. So that is our first major 7 shape. That is the A chord shape fragment, now as a major 7. Very important that you see the relationship between that, and why this is now major 7. This note has come down 1 fret. Now, we said it's the root note coming down 1 fret. Where is the root note in the D chord shape? It's on the 2nd string. That's going to come down 1 fret. We can finger that then just by barring the top 3 strings at the whatever fret we're at. Here it's D major 7 now. D, 2nd string lowers by 1 fret, D major 7. And the F chord fragment, where is the root of that chord? It's on the 1st string. So let's bring it up somewhere where it'll be clearer. Here it is as a G chord, the 3rd fret. The root note on the 1st string comes down 1 fret. So we're going to need to refinger this. The 1st string now will be at the 2nd fret. And the 2nd string still at the 3rd fret, 3rd string still at the 4th fret. So we're going to have this diagonal line shape. See the relationship between G and G major 7. Hope that's clear. So our 3 major 7 chord shapes are the A shape becomes this shape, the D shape becomes this shape, and the F shape becomes this shape. What we'll do now, of course, is, as is our habit by now, we'll go straight into a backing track, and I'll use those 3 shapes as examples as we play over a sequence that includes A major 7, C major 7, D major 7, and G major 7 in the backing track. And that was a simple musical example to understand because the chords underneath us were all major 7 chords, so it's not a hard leap to figure that we can put major 7 chord fragments over the top and get a nice sound. What though if the guitarist underneath is playing straight major chords? Well, we saw in the previous video that a minor chord sequence can be played over the top using minor 7th substitutes for a slightly coloured sound, a slightly jazzier sound. The same works for major 7 chords. we can take a simple progression in major chords and we can put major 7 chords over the top, and again we'll change the color of the music. We'll make it slightly jazzier, you might think slightly lighter, slightly prettier. Dangerous word to use, but that's an option that we have. So let's go over a sequence now that just has straight major chords. I think this just has D, G and A actually, but we'll put major 7 chords over the top and you'll hear how it changes the color of the music. Hopefully you can hear how that lent a certain flavour to the music. I used the words jazzy or even pretty earlier on. You can think of any adjectives that work for you, but you hear how adding major 7th chords over a straight pop sequence of major chords really changed the character of the music. And of course, when you really get comfortable with this stuff, you can mix ordinary major chords and the major 7 chords. So that one went from D to G a couple of times. You could choose to play a straight D chord and then maybe throw in just maybe once the G becomes a G major 7 instead of a G. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, but you've got these extra options. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that I didn't substitute A major 7 for A. I played A out of this fragment. Now there's a reason for that that's related to music theory, and until I get into my future series on music theory, there's no simple way to explain that. If you do know something about music theory, what we're saying here is that the dominant chord in the key can't be substituted for a major 7. If that doesn't mean much to you right now, then don't worry about it. Just let your ears guide you and tell you whether that would have worked as a major 7. I think you'll find that it wouldn't. Just that one chord. There'll only ever be one chord in a key. Now what about 7th chords, or dominant 7th chords as they're known? Again, we're going to use the major shape as our basis, and we're going to look at what we have to do to that major shape to turn it from an ordinary major chord into a 7th chord. Let's start with our A shape. Here we are playing C out of the A shape. To turn it into a 7th chord, the root note of the chord goes back 2 frets. That relationship is crucial to recognize. For a major 7 chord, the root note goes back 1 fret. There. For a dominant 7th chord, it goes back 2 frets. This note is the root note of the A shape, goes back 2 frets. What we can do now, for example, is bar those 3 strings and keep, I would use the ring finger. Keep the ring finger out here. See the relationship. There's our A shape. The root note, the 3rd string, goes back 2 frets. We now need to finger it something like that. And we've got a 7th chord, a dominant 7th chord. That would be C7. That's the A shape. Now the D shape, here's our normal D shape. Let's bring it up here to the 5th fret. It's F now. The root note of D, do you remember from the major 7ths? It's on the 2nd string. It now comes back 2 frets. 1 fret was our half bar. 1 more fret puts it at the 4th fret. Now you'll recognize that shape, right? We've turned D, the D shape, into a D7 shape. We recognize it because it's our standard 1st position, D7. But now it's a movable chord fragment. Here we are with it playing F7 if we just play the top 3 strings. So that's a simple one to recognize. And then we've got our F shape. Now this is a little trickier. Here it is, so there it's F of course, and G, I think I was in G sharp, let's bring it up to A at the 5th fret, it doesn't matter. The root note's on the 1st string. Now you can bring that down 2 frets by all means, but now you've got yourself a stretch because it would have to come down to the 3rd fret, and we still want the 2nd string at the 5th fret and 3rd string at the 6th fret. That is indeed the movable 7th chord shape using the F shape, but you'll recognize that that is neither comfortable to play nor easy to get into quickly. What I do is I take the original shape and I get that note that was at the 3rd fret on the 2nd string by adding the little finger in this case at the 8th fret, but 3 frets higher than your little 2-string bar. Yeah? And those of you who know your chord shapes really well will recognize that what we're doing is taking, for example, the F7 shape, where we add the little finger on the 2nd string there. We're actually taking that shape, just the top 3 strings of that shape. There we have it. Now, if that causes you any problems at all, of course you have 2 other shapes that you can use. You can simply avoid that shape if you prefer to. That will be fine too. But it is technically the third shape of the 3 that we've seen in every example we've used. So we've got the A shape becoming A7, or in this case C7 because of where I'm fingering it. I'm going to show you an alternative for that one in a moment too, which is very helpful. We've got the D7 shape that we know and love, and we've got this slightly awkward F7 shape. Now there's one more I want to show you. You know A7 of course like this. Have you ever seen A7 played as a 4-string bar plus the 1st string at the 3rd fret? That's another voicing of A7. Now look at that, that is a perfect 3-string fragment. We don't need the 4th string, let's just bring it down to cover 3 strings here. We've got the 3 strings at the 2nd fret and the 1st string at the 3rd fret. That is a really handy movable 7th chord shape out of this A7 shape. So A7, B flat 7, B7, C7 and so on all the way up the neck. I love that one. So I like to use that one much more even than that one. So I like the little 3-string one, this one that we just looked at. I like the D7 shape, and occasionally I might use this one out of the A shape or the F shape one. I tend to use that one least of all. So those are our movable 7th chord fragment shapes. Let's play them over a track that uses nothing but 7th chords. Obviously, if your backing track is using nothing but 7th chords, like bluesy pieces of music, for example, then you also will use nothing but 7th chords. And let's have a listen to how that would sound. This track uses the chords of E7, A7, G7, and F sharp 7. Oh, and I think it finishes on B7 as well. So we're running the gamut of 7th chords here. Let's have a listen. Again, not too hard to figure out what to play there. The backing track was all on 7th chords. It was a no-brainer to know that we want to put 7th chord fragments over the top to play along with it. But we're not quite done yet. Although we've covered everything to do with the fragments of major 7th and dominant 7th chords, I want to show you one more little thing about the power of these chords to really colour the music. We're going to go back to our straight pop sequence that just went D to G, D to G, A to G, and back to D. Couldn't be a simpler chord sequence. We tried it with major 7 chords over the top. Do you remember how we talked about it being prettier, slightly jazzier? We can also put dominant 7th chords over the top and completely change the character of the music, even though the rhythm guitarist isn't changing anything that he's playing. We're going to turn this track from what was a pretty jazzy tune before into a bluesier sounding thing by replacing those fragments with dominant 7th chord fragments. This is the power you have as the second guitarist over the top to really change the character of the music to something that you hear that the track could be. If you can't remember what the major 7 version of that sounded like, wind the video back and have a listen and compare the two. Whether you have one particular favorite or not is not important. The important thing to understand is what a difference that second guitar part made to the character of the music. And you have that same power. So we can check out of this video. I'll leave you, as always, now with the backing tracks that I use to play along with. Try out those ideas, and especially try out over the straight pop backing one, the difference between the major 7 and dominant 7 shapes, and hear yourself changing the character of the music completely. And I will see you next time.